Now, as we turn to real estate, I think it's important, and I thought this was a good chart to look at. Really, housing is the business cycle chart. And housing tends to be that key driver because people borrow against their homes. There's a lot of equity in it. And when you start to see some of these shifts, that's where when you look at it on the U.S. unemployment rate, 6-month average, the inverted lag, and again, that's why we do see that unemployment picking up. We do see some of those pressure points. And again, unemployment, and it's a mixture of what is the non-farm payroll, what is the participation rate versus the household surveys. And the household surveys have things getting a bit worse. The Challenger Job Index has things getting worse. Commentary from CFOs and other executives from calls have things getting worse, which again is going to pull down that housing sales to inventory component, which just means that sales are going to continue to fall, which based on today's data was just absolutely horrendous and showing sales really collapsing, which again is going to put more inventory on the market. But people are also slowing down putting their houses on the market. So that's going to offset a bit. But again, you just get an idea of where that trend is heading. So then when you look at U.S. housing starts, just as looking at the start side, housing starts fell 9.6% to 1.45 million in July, fourth monthly decline in 7 months, down 20% from April. Single family starts were down 10.1%. Multifamily was down 8.6%. Housing permits was down 1.3%. Single family permits were down 4.3%. And the thing is, you have that really strong falling affordability and builder sentiment. But it's interesting here because single family obviously had a huge run up. Now you're starting to see it come down, but multifamily, it's coming down much slower. And I think right now, just because if you think about the economics of it and where the pressure is, if you're a flipper or if you're doing something in terms of housing builds, single family, you can't spread the cost amongst many individuals. And single family, you're selling it to one individual. So if you start to see that pressure, that's difficult. Where multifamily, the more units you have, the more you can spread around cost, the more you can protect margins. So, and at the same time, there's a decent market right now with an aging population. A lot of the individuals who have sold are in the boomer into the retirement age, and they're looking to downsize. So that's where multifamily, I think, can continue to outperform. And again, it's just, if you look at just that massive alligator move at the beginning of 2020, you'll start to see it come down. And not that multifamily is going to go up, but it's just, I think you're going to start to see multifamily kind of average out while single family continues to move down. How long will residential remodelers stay busy? Residential remodelers tell, this is coming from John Burns, Real Estate Consulting. Fantastic data, highly recommend it. Residential remodelers tell us they are sitting on an average project backlog of 5.2 months, and new project bookings have slowed to a trickle. On the bright side, this sets up relief on material pricing, labor availability, and product lead times for builders and remodelers. And this is interesting because my neighbor actually just put a second floor on their home. They signed up to do that last year, and they finally completed it. Really, let's call it the end of June. And we were talking to some of the guys that were doing it, and we were asking them, like, look, what does your backlog look like? And they said that to September. And then there's a big drop off. I have a friend who's currently building a home in upstate New York, and he said the same thing. He's like, before I couldn't get anybody to call me back. Now I'm having people call me back. And same with a friend that moved out into the Philly, one of the Philly suburbs on the Jersey side. Couldn't get anyone to call me back. Now 5 people are showing up and calling me back within a day. And I think you're starting to see some of this concern come down when you look at, how much is this slowing down? Where is this going? And I think this is going to be interesting, especially for us who are looking to build a renewable refiner as well as some other assets. It's good for us in terms of availability of not only steel as well as concrete, but it's also good for the energy industry because a lot of the pipe that goes into construction also goes into energy. But it's just threaded going on the energy side. So this does offer up a certain amount of opportunity to bring down some of those steel prices in the energy world. So then when we look at another sign that the housing market is cooling, the U.S. new privately owned housing units started by structure total continuing to move down. Private housing authorized by building permits. Again, you're just starting to see things normalize, coming back to pre-COVID levels, which is when we started to see the big increase, really the Q4 of 19. But we just think that you're going to continue to see some of these slowdowns because homes under construction remain at a record. So then when you look at the National Association of Retailers data, U.S. mortgage affordability, as you can see, it's very negative in terms of what can be afforded. And this is looking at typical monthly mortgage payment minus principal plus interest in terms of just where it is. It's right now at $1,944, which, as we know, has continued to go up. And then the mortgage payment as a percentage of income has now surged just as rates have gone up to 25% of income, which again is becoming that big overhang. And it's coming to that area that we saw back in 2006, which was why we do continue to see some of those underlying slowdowns. And then single family built for rent starts have actually gone up. And that's what you're starting to see is where people are looking to try to if they can't sell it. And the reason why when you look at that is as a builder, you're looking at this and saying, look, I now can't sell this house into the market. So instead of trying to sell it, I'm just going to rent it. And I think that's what you're starting to see pivot, and which is good and bad, because at the same time, if you can't get rent to cover your mortgage and your other costs, because a lot of times a contractor needs to sell that in order to unlock money to finish something else. So this could become, and what we've seen in the past, a big overhang as we head into next year, as some of these products get pushed and homes get pushed into the market. Record backlog in single-family homes yet to be started. So this is the starts come down, but yet to be started continues to be an issue. And the reason why it continues to be elevated on not yet started is because U.S. housing units under construction monthly is the highest it's ever been, taking out the highs from the 1972-73 period. And that's where you keep hearing a lot about lack of availability, or lack of supply. It's all under construction. Now, some of this is pre-sold. I'm not saying that all of this is going to be available, but this is why now you're seeing it's like, okay, well, I'm building this home. It was built on spec. Now I can't sell it. I'm going to rent it. Or you're going to start to see some of these prices come down as these units and as these entities start to enter the market. And this is happening as new listings of homes down 11.8% year on year. So new listings are down just about 12% from a year ago, the steepest decline since June 2020. Still, overall housing supply is on the rise, a sign that buyers are pulling back more than sellers. And that's what we were talking about in terms of that pullback, where yes, there's less inventory coming to the market, but there's also less buyers. So even though there's less people trying to sell homes, there's even less people trying to buy, which is keeping that spread. And this is just echoing that point with the National Housing Bureau traffic of prospective buyers, 6-month change. It's the lowest it's been since March of 2020. So prospective buyer traffic portion of home builder sentiment continues to plunge. As of July 6th, 6-month change was worse since pandemic initially started. Home purchases are getting canceled at the highest rate since 2020. Home buyers are backing out. Roughly 63,000 home purchase agreements fell through in July, which equals 16.1% of homes that went under contract that month, highest percent since March, April of 2020. And the issue is incomes can't cover based on where the rates are. Banks have increased their needs of proof of income. They have stopped their waiver on value, because typically you have to have it appraised, and if it doesn't appraise, then you have to make up the difference, and that is causing some of these deals to fall through. Home buyer competition dips for 6 months straight, month in July. monthly shares of Redfin Homes home offers that face competition, and this is where if the home gets more than one offer, it's deemed as competition. So you're starting to see less and less people coming in, new home listings again coming down. But even as those are coming down, just this gives you an idea of, well, there's less competition, so there's clearly less buyers, which is putting additional pressure into that world. Continued fear for existing home sales that were down negative 5.9% in July versus the estimate of negative 4.9%. Annualized level of sales at 4.81 million is the lowest since May of 2020. Median selling homes are at up 10.8% to $403,800. First-time home buyers account for 29% of transactions, which is actually one of the highest it's been in a while. So again, you're starting to see a lot of these problems coming down on existing home sales. They are just dropping a significant amount in general. Bidding war is winding down. This is just putting it into context again. In July, there was competition for just 44% of U.S. homes, 6 straight monthly decline, and steep drop from 70% at the beginning of the year. Offer is considered part of a bidding war if the agent reported receipt of at least one competing bid. So again, you're getting an idea of just how slow that is getting. Home builder sentiment still in free fall. In August, a housing market index fell to 49 versus the estimate of 54. Future sales, present sales, and prospective buyers traffic all fell. Again, we're moving back into where we've been obviously taking it pre-COVID. This is where we were back in that 2013-14 level. U.S. August home builder index fell to 49, below the break-even measure of 50. So again, we're now in contraction. The sentiment declined for an 8th straight month, making the worst stretch since the housing market collapsed in 2007. And unfortunately, as we've been saying, we don't see any change coming. Future sales component with home builder confidence is approaching its pandemic low at 47. Index is consistent with where it was in the mid-2006s. A year ago, it was at 81, giving you an idea of just the pain that is considered on the future sale front. U.S. home traffic has collapsed. Home buyers have disappeared. So again, when you start looking at median existing home price, we should start to see those home prices also come down, but it's not going to be uniform. It's going to be dictated based on region. And typically you have the Northeast, the West Coast falling first because a lot of people are shifting from those areas down, and that is going to continue to be the problem. Expected single-family home sales is back to where they were, as we said, in 2013, taking away, obviously, the COVID lull. Traffic of prospective buyers is now, again, back to where we were in that 2013, 2012, 2014 level. U.S. consumer sentiment was expected 52.5, came in at 55.1. Current economic conditions index was expected at 57.8, came in at 55. So again, they all lead together, because if you feel your current economic condition sucks and is going to get worse, well, you're not going to go out there and buy a home at these elevated prices. U.S. Michigan expectation index was expected at 48.5, came in at 54.9. Buying conditions for large household durables back to the lowest it's ever been, with expectations getting a bit better. A lot of that is gasoline, but even with the gasoline drop, you're still seeing this bounce. You're still seeing how low we are, and we don't see this getting much better because of sticky inflation, because of these headwinds, which again is going to keep things a bit depressed. So that's what we have for you for the U.S. and real estate. Again, not a pretty picture when you think about this going forward. But now in the next segment, we're going to dive into Europe and what are some of the things happening there.